Hey everybody, thanks for watching again. I know this is everybody's highlight of your week to get to watch these videos about what we're talking about this Sunday. I want you to know, before we get too deep into this, that I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you do and the passion that you have for our students here that already come to Sunday Night Youth Group and students that might come sometime in the future. We just have a heart for teenagers and a passion to just equip them and grow up leaders. Whether they lead within the church or lead corporations after youth group and in careers, we are doing incredible work, and it's beyond any one person. So first and foremost, just thank you. Know that you are valuable and loved, and we couldn't do it without you. We are changing the lives of students every single week. So seriously, thank you for what you do. Before we dive into our curriculum, I want to give us just our tip and trick for this week to try out. It's from a document called The Art of Asking Questions. And it's some stuff that we'll be looking at for the next probably 10 weeks or so. We'll just take a tip every single week and try it out for that week. This week, the tip is don't settle for the correct answer. And as funny as that sounds, attempt to get a lot of feedback about the question. Typically, there'll be a handful of students that will always answer the question and others that will never answer the question. But the reality in that is typically with a group of 10 to 15 people, there will be opposing answers, and it's good for us to wrestle with that sometimes. It's good for us to hear different groups out and to really flush out and see what's behind those answers. And when somebody gives you a quick answer, even if it's the correct answer, instead of just moving on to the next one, press them a little bit. Make sure that our students really believe what they're saying, and they're not just saying the right answer to get through small groups. Say things like, I hear what you're saying, but what does that really mean? Or ask for examples from everyday life. Have them make it real in their life every single day. Hopefully that'll help with the way we ask questions, the way that we view our small group time. Give it a try this week. Let us know if that works. We'll have another one for you next week. The curriculum that we're going to dive into, I'll give you a little bit of background for the sermon series we're in called Judgment Call. We're in week 2. And this week we're talking about how sometimes we judge a book by its cover. And we look at the people around us in our classes, on sports teams, siblings, family, and a lot of times we don't see what they can be. We see what they are right now, and our instinct is to look at someone's outward behavior and make assumptions about who they are and who they're going to be. Now, it's something we do, it's not something we do intentionally. Often, without even thinking, we look at someone around us and assume we know the whole story. For our students, they see that guy that's failing every class, or the girl with a bad reputation, or the guy who's always in a fight, the nerd who studies too much, or the group that always parties, or the group that never parties. And the thing with that is we can't help to categorize people. We can't help to make assumptions about who they are and why they act the way they do. We think we know what kind of person they are. And we all do it. We all do it in our careers. You and I do it in our jobs. We all make our own judgments about people. And based on what we see and that person's behavior is what we assume and look at what that person can be. Now, the crazy thing is that categorizing people and putting people in boxes, making assumptions about them, isn't a new thing. Thousands of years ago, people found ways to categorize others and judge them and from just looking at them or knowing their history. In fact, people would often make judgment about who God liked or who God didn't like, or who he would bless or use based on how or who a person was and what they did. Now, this is especially true for the person we're going to look at this week. This is a woman named Rahab. Now, Rahab's story is found right in the middle of the Israelite story. The Israelites have been wandering in the desert for 40 years, and they had finally arrived to Canaan, the place where God told them that would be theirs. Now, there's one problem here. There were already people living in that city, so Joshua, the Israelites' leaders, sent spies into that city to see how difficult the land would be to take. And so while the spies were in there, the king found out, and in fear for their lives, the spies hid in Rahab's house. Now, but someone told the king of Jericho, and it says in Scripture from Joshua chapter 2, verses 2 through 5, it says, Some Israelites have come here to spy on our land. They said this to the king of Jericho. So the king sent an order to Rahab, Bring out the men who have come to your house, for they have come here to spy out our whole land. Rahab had hidden the 2 men, and she replied, Yes, the men were here earlier, but I don't know where they were from. They left town at dusk as the gates were about to close. I don't know where they went. If you hurry, you can probably catch up with them. So Rahab hid the spies so they wouldn't be killed, outsmarting the king's men and helping the spies from the Israelites, get out of the city. Now, she sounds pretty awesome. She sounds like she was on God's side, helping God's chosen people, the Israelites, get into their promised land, kind of a hero situation. Now, but this isn't the entire story. If we back up a couple of verses before what we just read, we see something different about Rahab. Joshua secretly sent spies from the Israelite camp, and he instructed them scout out the land on the other side of the Jordan River, especially around Jericho. So these two men set out and came into the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed the night there. So that's just the verse right before the verses we read beforehand. So if we skip this verse, we see, oh, Rahab's this hero. But then if we go back, we see, oh, Rahab was a prostitute. And not exactly who you would expect to be a hero in God's story. Yet God chose for her to play a really important role. She was pivotal for the Israelites winning Jericho. And we see that God saw past Rahab's current situation, current sins, current way of life. God saw Rahab's potential. He believed in Rahab, and not just in this story, but later on too. See, Rahab's story continues. In the Gospel of Matthew, we find a long list of names, and that list of names is Jesus' family tree. Now, it seems kind of pointless to us, but you find something interesting tucked right in the middle of those names. It's in Matthew chapter 1, verse 5. It says, Solomon, we read, the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Did you catch that? Rahab made the family tree of God. God put a prostitute into the family line of Jesus. She was his ancestor, and it wasn't an accident or an oversight. It was to make a very clear point that God is interested in more than just how we appear. God doesn't need perfect people to accomplish his perfect plan. God uses broken, righteous, sinful, influential, and powerless people to accomplish whatever he wants to accomplish. God uses everyday, average kind of people to experience and to bring about extraordinary things. Now we see their bad behavior and label a person right away. We can't really know what God will do, though. You don't know what God could already be setting up in their lives, or whether he wants to use you to be a part of his plan for helping somebody else get there. So what do we do with this? What are some tools that we have? And that's how we're going to kind of wrap up this week. We're going to talk about some tools to help us to stop seeing just what's right in front of us, but to recognize that God has the best in mind for everybody, not just us. First thing we can do is assume the best. Not all judgments have to be negative. You can look at people, and even people who make decisions that you disagree with, and assume the best about them. The second thing we need to do is trust God with the rest. There is a 100% chance that if you assume the best about everyone around you, someone will let you down. And there's also a 100% chance that all of their actions and decisions will not line up with your opinion of them. And what happens then is we'll be tempted to say, see, I knew they were that way. But what can we do to stop and resist that temptation? We trust God with the rest. We trust God when we notice that our expectations have been let down because we've expected the best out of people. And last week we ended the kind of session with this idea from Galatians chapter 5, verse 6 that says, the only thing that counts is expressing faith through love. So we asked the question, a very tool belt kind of last question that you can ask everybody is, what does love require of me? In any situation, at any time when you look at somebody and go, man, they have limits, they have these certain things, they must be this way, what does love require of me to do? Love requires that we see the best in people and that we trust God with everybody's lives. Now, are we going to get this right every single time? Probably not. Are we going to nail this and be perfect at it? Probably not. But there's a piece of scripture that talks about a little bit of yeast goes a long way in a batch of dough. Now, yeast is what makes bread rise, and only a little tiny bit is all it takes to work its way through the entire loaf. So if we look at that story and that symbolism, it only takes a little bit and small steps of us assuming the best and trusting God with the rest and asking ourselves the question, what does love require of me, to go a long way and impact our lives and the lives of people around us. So in every situation we're faced with where we have to make a judgment call, let's ask ourselves, what does love require for me to do? And every time we ask that question, it's going to continue to weave itself into our lives and help us to cultivate this attitude of loving other people before we judge them, before we get to know them. And as we get to know them, we see God's full potential in their lives. So we'll see you at 4:45 for our leader huddle out in the lobby this week. Looking forward to it. Thanks for everything that you guys do. Have a great rest of the week. See you Sunday at 4:45.